Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me for Terrmeister Terrific Thursday. This Thursday, I'm going to be talking about something called, it's called muscle dysmorphia. We hear a lot about anorexia and that there are many signs people who are concerned for their family members may have. Some signs include obsessing over weight, how much fat is in it, ritualistic ways of eating, such as leaving leftover food on their plate. And of course, the way they look after a while can determine how concerned we think we should be. However, like overeating, undereating has a lot of health risks, and we rarely ever think about that because we're so fixated on the look part. Men also suffer a lot from anorexia and are a hidden populace in the fight against eating disorders. One eating disorder, which is actually classified as an eating disorder, is called muscle dysmorphia. It fits into the category of body dysmorphia, which is a warped perception of the body that is, to say the least, inaccurate. Anorexics look at themselves and see fat. Muscle dysmorphic people are the opposite. They are muscular and healthy looking to many, but see themselves as too small. It's also called reverse anorexia, the Adonis complex, and I like the term bigorexia. Bigorexia is often self-diagnosed because there's no real test I have seen to decipher whether bigorexia and its effects have risen to the level anorexia has in the public eye. People who suffer from bigorexia will sometimes devote an inordinate amount of time to the gym and diet regimens, exerting a lot of time to fix a particular area that they find too small, standing in the mirror obsessively, and critiquing the body parts to the point of insanity. Remember when you were a kid and you swore you cleaned something so spick and span, and your mom walked in, made a beeline to a faraway place and said, "Look at what about that over there?" That is exactly what it is like. Now there is a lot of pressure on men to look good and to be attractive and healthy. And in the gay community, it is infinitesimally worse. But the pressure is enormous. Many people think that the pressure is only on women, but think about the small guy in high school who liked a girl and she said, well, you're too short or you're too small and I want a man who can defend me. Or the small kid in high school who put muscle on so he wouldn't be tossed around by bullies. Or the fat kid who wanted to put some muscle on and get rid of fat so he wouldn't be ridiculed about man boobs. Even after making progress in weight loss or weight gain, these experiences, those pictures, are still burned into our mind and affect us for the rest of our lives. They linger with us and we become a captive, or we can be freed from them. But it is not very easy. So with bigorexia, we've established a few things. But I also want to suggest a few tips for those suffering with it. Number one is to seek counseling. There is nothing wrong with seeking counseling. If you could deal with it, you would have done it already. And you would be over it, basically. Number two, realize that you can only get so big. Now, the human body is only made to get so big before it starts feeding on itself and causing major problems. Like joint problems can happen or be made worse by the size. If you're an athlete, you know that injuries can happen, especially if you're at a high level activity consistently, but you don't want to cause further unnecessary damage. Number three is admit that you have a problem. Now, this should have been number one, but it is the most important. If you can't admit there's a problem, you will go on trying to deal with it yourself and think that you have it under control. Again, remember step number one. And number four is to deal with the root, not the fruit. Where does this obsession come from with being too big or to get bigger? Now, I suffer from an anorexic mindset where I'm always obsessing over losing weight. It came from being a heavy kid all my life and feeling insecure about my weight and feeling unattractive. And let's face it, none of the girls in my classes ever looked at me as boyfriend material. I've always had friends, but, well, in this case, no boyfriend. Always the groomsman, never the groom. It is that from which my problems spring, and I am having to deal with every single day. So I hope that this has been some help to you. Or if you know someone's dealing with muscle dysmorphia, Adonis complex, or bigorexia, whatever the name, the problem exists the same. So please forward them this video and let them know that they are not alone. And thank you for joining me. Next week will be Camp Week. I also did another video about bigorexia here. I will link it below. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you.